so much, Jason, for such a great introduction. I did try to help Jason as much as I can. And I remember that parade in Wilton, because at the beginning of the parade, Jason said to me, "So how many hands are you going to be shaking today?" And I looked at him and I said, "What?" He said, "How many hands are you going to be shaking?" And I said, "Well, as many as I can." He said, "Well, I'm doing double that number." And I remember also a fundraiser we held for Jason in Herman. And I heard him speak about small businesses and the direction our state needed to go in and the direction our country needed to take. And I thought, if every person in Maine can meet Jason and hear him, he'll win in a walk. So Jason, as someone who wasn't elected the first time out, if at first you don't succeed, remember how that goes. It is wonderful to be here tonight and to have such a great crowd. But I got to tell you that what makes me happiest is looking out and not only seeing all these wonderful Republicans, but seeing these wonderful Republicans who are actually holding office. Yay! And that includes our great new Attorney General. I understand that Charlie Summers was here briefly, our new Secretary of State. Darrell Brown is here, our new Commissioner. Caldy Jackson, our Deputy Commissioner of Agriculture, is here. And all of these new state senators and legislators and commissioners, could I ask you all to stand up so that we can thank you for serving. Wonderful. On the morning of November 3rd of last year, the New York Times carried this headline that I must confess I didn't know that whether I would ever see. And it said, "Overnight, Maine turns red." And nowhere did Maine turn a more glorious shade of red than in Androscoggin County. The turnabout, all of you, the turnaround in your delegation to the state legislature is truly remarkable. From a distinct Republican minority to a solid 13-6 majority. Now, I was curious when the last time was that Androscoggin County held a majority in both the House and the Senate. So, of course, I turned to the two biggest experts. Actually, the three biggest experts, Rosemary Butler, Tom Shields, Ann Robinson. I asked them all. And if they didn't know the answer, I think it's fair to say that it's not during the lifetime of anyone in this room. But that makes the accomplishment all that much more significant. And I think it's safe to say that that muscular, fire-breathing elephant that's on your website isn't just a logo, it's a reality. So tonight we're going to have an auction to help make sure that our great candidates, both those who won this time and those who will run again, have the resources that they need to be successful. Now, as I do each year, I've donated a certificate that can be turned in for a United States flag that can be flown over the Capitol in honor of whomever you would like. But just 2 days ago, I received in the mail a letter from Nancy Reagan, and she was inviting me to a dinner in Washington to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Ronald Reagan's birth. And I'm very excited and looking forward to going to that. And she also sent something to me. And I have to tell you, I really wanted to keep it. But I thought the better thing for the greater good would be to donate it to tonight's auction. And you can see that it's in a beautiful box that has Ronald Reagan signature and the flag, I mean the eagle on it. And inside, 49 different flavors of Ronald Reagan's famous jelly beans. So, I'm adding that to the auction tonight. Now, contrary to that New York Times headline, the work that was done to elect all of these wonderful Republicans did not happen overnight. It was the result of a lot of hard work. The hard work of everyone in this room who made the phone calls, who did the lit drops, who encouraged their neighbors and friends to vote. It also took great legislative candidates with a powerful message that resonated with the citizens of our state that were tired of what had happened in Augusta. From Governor LePage to Charlie Webster to each and every one of you here tonight, it was a united effort based on our party's great unifying principle. Ours is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. In this 150th anniversary year of Abraham Lincoln's first inauguration, those words of President Lincoln have special meaning. His magnificent words, propelled by his noble ideals, inspire us today in such cherished documents as the Gettysburg Address, his 2 inaugural speeches, and of course the Emancipation Proclamation. But it's important to remember that Abraham Lincoln was inspired throughout his life by 2 documents written before his time. The Declaration of Independence was, in his view, America's promise to the world. The Constitution, he said, was the only safeguard of our liberties. The 2010 elections were about keeping the promise of those liberties. It was about securing the blessings of liberty for ourselves and for posterity. It was the hard-working, self-reliant, and patriotic citizens in Maine and across this great country who responded to Abraham Lincoln's warning that America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves. If there is one event that can be credited with rousing the American people against that threat, of excessive government, it was the passage a year ago of Obamacare, the health care bill. I opposed that bill then at every step of the way, and I voted to repeal it a month ago. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't need reform, but Obamacare utterly fails to do what true healthcare reform must do, and that is to provide consumers with more choices and to rein in costs. Instead, the Democrats did exactly the opposite. They forced through billions in new taxes, fees, and penalties, fewer choices, higher insurance premiums, and harmful mandates. Maybe the Democrats were a bit ashamed of what they were doing because they crafted the final version of the bill behind closed doors. They stuffed it with special deals like the Cornhusker kickback and the Louisiana Purchase in exchange for votes, and they jammed it through the Senate using a parliamentary procedure to avoid having the normal 60 votes that would be needed for a bill like this. The Democrats violated the fundamental rule of medicine that the physicians who are here tonight know so well, and that is the Hippocratic Oath, first, do no harm. The 1099 provision in the healthcare bill is a prime example of the many problems with the new law. As you may have heard, this onerous rule would have required business owners to file separate 1099 tax forms for every business transaction totaling $600 or more in a given year. I could ask Jimmy what that would mean for his business, for example, and Linda too. This unfair mandate would have created a huge paperwork burden for as many as 40 million businesses, many of which are already struggling during these difficult economic times. I've worked hard to repeal that provision because it would have buried our small businesses in a mountain of paperwork, driving up costs and further hampering economic recovery and job creation. Surely, healthcare reform should be helping our small businesses provide health insurance for their employees, not punishing employers with expensive penalties and a maze of new bureaucratic requirements. The Constitution safeguards our liberties by limiting government, and President Obama's health care law gives government unprecedented authority to intrude in the lives of our citizens and their relationships with their health care providers. And it's not surprising that its constitutionality is very much in doubt. Now, you might think that in this 2,700-page bill, that Congress would have legislated every aspect of health care covered in microscopic detail. But instead, what the bill does, in addition to that, is it grants extraordinary power to a single person, the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Throughout the new law, there are nearly 2,000 phrases where it says, the secretary shall do this, or the secretary shall